Mr. Steenhuisen, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. So tell us what your strategy is to actually fix the problem.
Well, thank you, Shahan, and like the other people who've spoken, I think that the sabotage claim is frankly unbelievable and not borne out by the facts. But there are 6 things that the government could do virtually immediately which would ensure that we have a far more stable energy supply. The first of these would be to embark upon very quickly the breakup of Eskom into an energy and distribution entities and be able to introduce competition and RPPs. Minister Gwede Mantashe could sign the 17 applications that are sitting on his desk for independent power producers to be able to provide municipalities with electricity virtually immediately. Eskom should be entitled to get tax-free diesel from Petro SA. They should immediately be able to procure coal from people outside of the very narrow band of people that have got contracts. And then, of course, to look and allow municipalities particularly to look at generation of their own electricity without having to go through the onerous regulation set out in Section 2 and Section 34. And, of course, declaring Eskom workers an essential service, given the fact that there is a huge impact on the national economy, growth and jobs, that they are declared a national service so that they are not able to hold the country to ransom through strike action. Just with these 6 steps, we could start to rapidly move towards a more energy secure environment in the short term, while government sorts out what's going to have to be done in the long term.
Yeah, so Mr. Steenhuisen, how then do you deal with municipalities and etc. who are not paying Eskom the money that's owed, and Eskom is now in this financial position because of things like that? How do you work around the finances at Eskom?
Well, municipalities should have their equitable share top sliced to settle those debts. Far too many municipalities take the money that is meant to be rolling out to maintain and extend infrastructure and use it on other items within those municipalities. So Eskom's share should be top sliced out and paid directly to them. I think municipalities need to move to a far more smart metering systems to ensure that you don't end up with huge amounts of debtors' books owed to the municipality, which means you cannot then pay over to Eskom. Those are just 2 aspects that one could look at to solve that problem in the short term.
Of course, you know that the Mineral Resources Minister, Gwede Mantashe, is denying that he's an obstacle to IPPs. But let me then ask you about something else that's happening in your city particularly. What can you do as the DA-led government provincially to make sure that small businesses are not affected by these rolling blackouts?
Well, what we've done already in the Western Cape is 18 out of 24 municipalities allow residents to generate their own electricity and are able to then feed it back into the grid, any excess energy that they generate. And we're obviously encouraging as many private citizens to be able to do that. We've got the municipalities that are in court, DA-run municipalities that are in court with the government to compel them, given the state of emergency that exists in terms of our energy supply and these rolling blackouts, to compel the minister to allow them to procure from RPPs so they can keep the lights on. In the city of Cape Town, there's been a design on the grid, and with using peaking plants and the municipality's existing generation capabilities, being able to mitigate and ameliorate large parts of the CBD from actually having to be load shed, because the effect on small businesses particularly, you cannot absorb the losses, and the margins in these particular instances are worst affected. This is killing the economy and it's killing jobs, and we need to make sure that cities around the country, not just in Cape Town, remain engine rooms of growth and development and are not hamstrung by these rolling blackouts going forward. They can only do that if Minister Gwede Mantashe gets out of the way and allows them to do what needs to be done to protect their city economies and the jobs of their residents.
All right, Mr. Steenhuisen, let's shift gears a little bit, because whenever I ask for interviews with you, you're never available, it seems, because you have a very busy diary. So while I have you here, let's talk about the Democratic Alliance's council members in Johannesburg. We as ENCA has spoken to one of them who says he's now being targeted for attending the session yesterday where the speaker was elected and threatened. How are you handling your members in Joburg?
I made a commitment when I was elected interim leader of this party, that one of the things we needed to do was to reinstill discipline within the organisation. There was a very clear caucus decision made around yesterday's meeting. 2 councillors chose to put themselves above the rest of the team there, and as such we will be moving against them. They don't belong in the DA. When you behave in this type of treacherous way and you conspire with political opponents, there will be a cost to pay, and I'm going to send a very clear message out throughout the party that where you don't act in the best interests of your voters, where you don't act in the mandate of the party, you must go and find another political party to be a member of, because the Democratic Alliance will not be the home for ill-disciplined members. Members of the public are sick and tired of politicians who put themselves above the interests of residents, and we're not going to brook it in the DA, and both these councillors will be decisively dealt with.
Now, isn't that kind of rich coming from the Democratic Alliance when you expected ANC members in Parliament to vote against Jacob Zuma's removal? It's the same thing.
No, this is not the same thing at all. This is not a motion of no confidence where there is an opportunity to exercise your vote of conscience. People vote for political parties in South Africa. Political parties have a right to at least demand some form of discipline from their members. This is a feature of political parties the world over. We've seen already what happened in the Commons to those members of Parliament who broke ranks with the party whip. They were removed and they had the whip removed from them. So we will not be able to advance into government as a party if we're not able to be a disciplined movement where people are able to rely that DA members are going to do what the DA's mandate from the voters expects them to do.
Yeah, so it looks like things are actually falling apart for the Democratic Alliance since you took over, right? You lost Tshwane, you have lost Johannesburg. It's not looking good. How do you feel?
Things haven't fallen apart. Things are falling into place. The dice that the EFF played in this last week were loaded in May this year when they demanded the mayoralty of Tshwane. I've been very clear. I'm not going to allow the rent seekers in the EFF to get their hands on the governance of either Johannesburg or Tshwane, and if they do so, it certainly won't be with the Democratic Alliance's support. We completely agree with the current arrangement as it is, but we're not going to allow the EFF to take control. It's a demand they've been making since May. They've exercised their muscles in this last fortnight, and that's fine. That's what they need to do. And if we need to go into opposition on those councils, we will do so. But what I'm not going to do is allow the Democratic Alliance to hand power to a party that has looted VBS Bank, that has been involved in a huge variety of rent-seeking activities around the country. I will not do that to the people of Johannesburg and
Yeah,
Tshwane.
a party which, of course, the DA worked with quite closely to get those positions in both those councils. So what then do you have to say about people who have lost faith in the Democratic Alliance in these cities who were hoping that you will continue to do what you're doing? Well, right now you can't.
Well, Sean, with respect, the one voice that hasn't been heard in all this is precisely the people you speak about, the voters of Joburg. What you've seen is horse trading between political parties using positions, perks and patronage to do so, but the voters are yet to pass judgment on this. They will get that opportunity in 2021, and if we need to go onto the opposition benches and show what we can do, and then go to the voters in 2021 with a clear mandate, and asking them to give us a working majority in these municipalities, that's what we're going to do. But we're not going to govern for governance sake. If you don't govern with a purpose and don't govern to achieve outcomes, it's not worth it to be in government.
All right, that's a good political answer. But now let me ask you why you're targeting the poor, the homeless in Cape Town, for actually trying to find somewhere warm to sleep on the streets.
Well, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about.
The city of Cape Town is in court. They've been taken to court for fining poor people who don't have homes. They've been fined from 300 rand to up to 1,500
Sean, with respect, you'd have to. With respect, you should speak to the city of Cape Town. You should maybe ask one of the city councillors in here. I'm afraid I'm not au fait with the circumstances of that, and that wouldn't befit me to comment. And for suffice to say that the cities have bylaws, and these bylaws are not unique to the city of Cape Town. Where I come from in Durban, I think if you have a look at the bylaws relating to homelessness there, they're far more draconian than anywhere else in the country.
Yeah.
So, I think maybe you should get someone from the city of Cape Town in here to answer that.
This is your party. This is your party that's actually leading in Cape Town and in the Western Cape. Do you not know anything about this? I'm quite surprised.
Well, as I say to you, I don't know what the circumstances are or the intricacies of the court detail. I'm sure you don't expect Cyril Ramaphosa to know what's happening in every single municipality in the country that he's in charge of.
Okay, let me educate you then.
I think it is an unfair line of questioning.
Let me educate you on what's happening here, and it's very simple.
I don't need to be educated.
It's very simple.
I don't need to be educated from you, Shahan.
The legal action follows the city having issued at least 199 fines to the homeless this year for contravening a bylaw that makes it unlawful to obstruct pedestrian traffic on sidewalks. People have been fined for 300 Rand for obstructing pedestrians on a pavement, 300 Rand for sleeping in a public space, and 1,500 Rand for lighting a fire, of course during winter, to keep warm. It seems, as it stands, that the DA is again being anti-poor by taking these people and trying to fine them when they don't have money.
Well, with respect, we'd obviously have to wait what the outcome of the court case is. I'm not familiar with the circumstance, and I think it's an unfair line of questioning.
I don't think it's unfair.
But let me just say this, that there is no metropolitan government, there's no metropolitan government in this entire country that is doing more to uplift people out of poverty and into opportunity. If you look even by national government's own metrics, highest access to housing, highest access to basic services, cheapest basket of goods, most pro-poor policies, these all come here from the city of Cape Town. The most unequal metro in the country is Buffalo City, led by the ANC. This is a government here in the city that's on the march to make sure that we uplift people out of poverty and into opportunity. So say if you want to push on this particular issue, you need to invite JP Smith or the Mayor of Cape Town into your studio to do so. I think it's an unfair line of questioning.
I don't know how you can say that you're pro-poor when you're actually fining people for trying to keep warm on a sidewalk when they have nowhere else to go. I mean, that's a simple question, and it boils down to humanity over your bylaws.
John, with respect. Well, that is your version, or that's your version of events. Let's see what the court case says before you simply jump to conclusions.
How is it my version of events when the city has confirmed that they've issued 199 fines to poor people on the streets? That's a fact.
Well, as I said to you, Shahan, feel free to invite whoever you want to from the city to answer. You never asked President Ramaphosa anything about the municipalities that his ANC councillors are mismanaging and stealing and driving into the ground. I think it's an unfair line of questioning to be asking a leader of a political party about something so micro-focused on a particular city matter.
It might be micro-focused to you, but for the homeless people who are being affected by this, it's a big deal. Thank you for your time. We'll try to get JP Smith in as well a little later on in the week.